Welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum and how this is going to play out because Solana has just been going crazy for the last couple of weeks here. I'm here to tell you a couple of things. The things happening right now with Solana is very similar to what happened with Ethereum when we had DeFi summer back in 2020, 2021. The one thing is, if you think about what happened in 2021 with the NFT space and everything just kind of going nuts, I think that we are in a very interesting spot at the moment because if you take a look at what's happening with our price action, our TVL has now gone up quite a bit since the low in October when it was at 20. That was our low point in terms of activity. Now, most of the other chains have done pretty much the same. We have October as our bottom. Our Solana is at our bottom. We have, let me take a look at Avalanche. Avalanche is another one. It's a smaller chain, but again, we're nowhere near the peak that we were back in October to April when these side chains were doing really well. But Solana has basically done extremely well. However, the TVL volume is still not there. Right now, for Ethereum and some of these other altcoins, I think right now we're having this kind of a little small pocket of price action, but we're not seeing the volume that we saw back in two years ago. Now, the reason is very simple. Take a look at what's happening with the protocol rankings in terms of volume and what's driving a lot of TVL volume, because we've been going up about 40% in the last 3 months. A lot of it has to do with the staking. There isn't any sort of retail NFT big trades happening at the moment. A lot of it's just like Lido. Now, if you take a look at Lido, Maker, Aave, Uniswap, Rocket Pool, these are all the projects that have had significant changes in their TVL volume in the last month. And in terms of TVL size, they're still holding their main value here. So 1 month change, we're at 17% for Rocket Pool. If you add up all of them, majority of these are in your staking. And actually, Uniswap is interesting because Uniswap is still generating about $1 million in fees compared to something like Lido and also with some of the other larger projects. But majority of the volume is still not there necessarily. Now, if you take a look at something like a Solana, well, it's a little different because the majority of the volume has also come from staking, but we're also starting to see a lot of airdrops coming in. So Jito is an example. We're starting to see airdrops coming in from major projects that they're trying to get their project off the ground. And so what's happening is it's driving a lot of volume, a lot of TVL coming into this projects. But the question is, once the incentives dry up, are these going to continue to do well in the cycle? And so my guess here is I think the money is still going to be there, but it's going to be very similar to what happened in this period right here. Just to the fact that right now retail is getting locked out of a lot of these different projects because of the regulations. Now, as an example, Avalanche did something very similar back a while ago. We're talking about trading on Avalanche. Avalanche is a way smaller chain, but you can kind of see what happened with Avalanche as they were putting out incentives. And Avalanche is kind of creeping up here at about $900 million worth of TVL, while Avalanche is trading at a fraction of what Solana's market cap is. So Avalanche is really interesting to me at the moment because it's 17 billion, and yet its actual total value is comparable. It's a little bit lower than Solana by just quite a little bit. So if you're taking a look at Solana as a whole, I think it's a great project. I think there's got a lot of things going on, but I think the price is getting a little overextended. Now, in terms of Ethereum, there's a couple of catalysts for Ethereum that I think Solana does not have. And one of them has to do with the ETF. There's been already some institutions that want to make this into an ETF just like Bitcoin. The second catalyst I see, there's going to do an upgrade in Q1 of 2024 where they're going to introduce the sharding mechanism that's going to make Ethereum cheaper to transact. And I think you might get something very similar to what's happening with Solana at the moment as projects begin to realize that they could make this really cheap. And if you can incentivize the user by airdropping tokens, I think that's going to drive Ethereum back on. Now, again, I'm not saying that Ethereum is going to take off at the moment. What I am saying, though, is that these projects have been holding their TVL volume for quite a bit now. If you take a look at Lido for the liquid stakes, it's a very interesting proposition because Lido is $20 billion worth of liquid stake. Now, if you take a look at what's happening with Lido on TVL, after the FTX collapse in November of last year, which was pretty much our bottom at the moment, And if you take a look at what's been happening since October, November, and after that event, it's just been going up and up and up and up, right? I mean, there's more and more of this TVL volume being put in. And if you notice carefully, what's happening here is that Lido is really taking the cake in terms of stake ETH. So they're drawing a lot of the new issuance from the Ethereum chain back on that side. I also wanted to mention that if you take a look at the overall, let me go back to the overall picture here on the chains, is that Ethereum still has a good chunk of TVL relative and stable coins relative to everybody else next to Tron. Now, Tron, I wouldn't consider it a worthy DeFi because it's only got 27 protocols. But if you take a look at the next big one, which is BSC, it's still much, much larger. The amount of fees Ethereum is generating is $6.58 million worth of Ethereum on a market cap or TVL value of 10 times. So you're paying less than 10 times TVL, while something like a BSC, you're paying 12 times. A Solana, you're paying 35 times TVL. And aside from all of these other projects, what you're actually getting for is value. You're getting a lot of value for what you're paying for relative to how much volume you're generating. In the NFT space, Ethereum is generating 15 million, while Solana is trading at 12. So even on the NFT volume, Ethereum is still worth quite a bit. So if you're bullish on the altcoin space, the best project right now to go for is Ethereum, not necessarily some of these other small ones. And the other thing I also want to mention is that if you're taking a look at the 24-hour volume, right? Ethereum's its volume is trading at, all DEXs on the chain are trading at $1.07 billion. None of these other projects come even close. Not even Solana comes close at that value, right? Well, Solana's at, close to $1 billion too, but it's 895 million, which is still a little under. But most of these projects are relatively low, right? So if you take a look at all of these coins, all of them. Okay, so that begs the question is, so why aren't people buying Ethereum? That's the case. Well, the simple reason is because there's nothing in there that's hyping them up at the moment. What caused this move here in 2021 and 2022 was driven by a lot of the NFT, a lot of the degen stuff. We're talking about a lot of trading with some of these projects that were doing algorithmic stable coins. I mean, there was a lot of different projects that were coming in during that period. They were taking advantage of the smart contract. And I suspect that's what's probably going to happen again. Now, with all of that said, what projects are we looking for with Ethereum within the Ethereum network? Well, as long as the TVL value continues to rise here on both the DEXs and also of the lending portion, and we're getting the ETF coming in, then we probably could see another resurgence for Ethereum. But at the moment, I think the price that you're getting for Ethereum relative to your TVL volume, I think it's worth a shot. Downside risk is really easy. I mean, I think you can probably get down to, if the market starts to collapse from these levels, 50% downside risk for Ethereum. But that's really what you're paying for on the uptick that Ethereum is going to catch up at some point. So in my opinion, I think this is a really, really good opportunity to take a look at Ethereum at the moment. Nobody's really talking about it. And I think there's a lot of potential probabilities for Ethereum to really do well here in this cycle. The only thing is the staking pieces that we have. So Ethereum staking, if you take a look at for Lido, it's very interesting because Lido is where a lot of people are storing their ETH. So ETH is becoming a hard asset just from the fact that you have this staking protocol that's now being pulled in compared to the last cycle, which was proof of work. But if you want to stake for Ethereum, you're going to get a 3.7% APR, and 20 billion of that, about almost like a little bit less than 10% of the total amount of Ethereum is actually ending up of the supply of the market cap is actually staked. So there is an inflationary piece by this, but the one thing I would say though is you are going to find a situation where Lido ends up being a very interesting piece that many people are not really thinking about because of the fact that Ethereum has historically had these cycles. So if we do get Ethereum here, it's going to be about 1 year cycle where Ethereum just starts to rise. And just to give you an idea of how far we can go, we went to Ethereum to about 5,000, close to $5,000. So it could be a double up within a year, which is again not necessarily what some people want to get, but it's a very stable compounder, right? That's what you really want. And our low point for Ethereum on price action, if you remember from our low point back in during the FTX collapse, and let me just go ahead and put the inflows here. So if you go back to the low point for Ethereum, the low point for Ethereum was at about $1,200. So again, a 50% drop, and that's with all the FTX stuff. So you're looking at a 50% drop relative to calling Ethereum dead in the event that Solana is going to flip it. And I think that they're going to be surprised. So in my opinion, I'm going to be shifting some money over to Ethereum, and I'll be taking a look at if we can get back to that $5,000 range. All right, hopefully you enjoy this CBL.